So let's be amazed, okay? Let us allow ourselves to use imagination, and in the minutes that follow, for whatever it is worth to you, let it be meaningful somehow. You've decided to come here instead of going to one of the other presentations, or instead of lingering in the lunchroom, and I'm grateful for your presence. So let it be meaningful for you, and let's start like this. I want you to remember what you were doing before you came into this room. And was it eating lunch and maybe thinking back what was the favorite part of the lunch that you had, or maybe you hurried over from where you live somewhere in Doha, you wanted to get here, but you made a decision that you wanted to come here instead of doing anything else. And as I said, I'm grateful for that. Get in touch with that. There was a sequence of events that were all happening, and this is part of the paradox of our human experience. All those events were happening in the present moment, and yet in another way of looking at it, there was a sequence, there was a linearity. So there is that capacity in the human mind and the human imagination, in our human spirit, that we can both be aware of sequence, linear time, a kind of a logical idea that we can plan. We had been doing something else, then we're doing something now, and later we'll be doing something else. So I want you to feel connected to that path that you're on. And of course that path brought you to this conference, and if your imagination right now is stretching back to where you originated yesterday or 3 days ago or maybe 20 years ago, what brought you here? Something in your development, your personal path, your life has brought you to this moment. And I invite you to own that. Own your path, your particular destiny, as it were. Certainly it's not concluded as yet, but it has brought you right to this present moment. Now let's do something interesting to go a little more deeply. This experience here with me today is not like an ordinary presentation at a conference, right? I don't have a paper. To some extent, I'm winging it because I want to get a sense of really who's here as I make contact with each of you and have a sense of what our interaction can be. And again, I want to empower you. I want you to feel empowered to make the most of this experience in whatever way is meaningful for you. One of the things that I emphasized when I was teaching here in the pre-medical program and teaching a course that included a section on narrative medicine, it was a new hot topic 20 years ago. People were first realizing that physicians wanted to write about their experiences, patients wanted to write about their experiences, and that literature already had a huge body of in various genres. There was a huge body of work that could be regarded as medical humanities or narrative medicine, stories, in other words. And some of the presentations this morning have already emphasized the healing power of stories. So I'm asking you right now to be aware of your story. And on the one level, to be aware of it, as I was saying earlier, linearly, what your path is, what has brought you here, what your career is, perhaps what your career aspirations are. And on the other hand, to open up your sense of feeling, your feeling about your life. And that, of course, is where poetry lives. It lives at that intersection between feeling and the making meaning, and it uses words in order to open up that gate. Who here knows the Arabic word for poet? What is the Arabic word for poet? No native Arabic speakers here? I'm surprised. All right, so you'll have to go with my poor pronunciation. Shir. It would be the English rendering. And the word, interestingly, relates to feeling. So in the Arabic world, a poet is someone who feels and someone who shares their feelings with the community. In the Western world, going back to the Greeks, poet is a maker. So the word poesis means to make. So a poet is someone who makes meaning with words. So that is the medium primarily that I'm working with. I'm already using it right now. We're already on the journey, in case you hadn't noticed. We're already on the journey we're all taking, and each of us is going to have our own particular experience, but then again, we're going to have a collective experience. And if I don't talk too much, I hope there will be some time to share some of what is happening for you. So words are the medium. The poet is one who uses words, although broadly speaking, we could say there's poetry in such things as, well, basketball. Watching a wonderful basketball game is an experience of poetry in motion. But here, the medium is language, and it is a sonic medium. And one of the oldest ways that people share space through the medium of sound is with the drum. Very earliest times, when people and animals lived together, sometimes they were people, and sometimes they were animals. And there was no difference. All spoke the same language. That was the time when the human mind had mysterious powers. If you wanted something to happen, all you had to do was to say it. And a word spoken by chance might have strange consequences. It would suddenly come alive. Nobody could explain this. That's just the way it was. So those are words that were spoken to Nalunjak, who was a woman, probably a shaman herself, in Greenland, which she said her shaman grandfather had told her. And those words were in Danish, recorded by the Danish anthropologist, the great pioneer Knud Rasmussen, who spent a lot of time with the indigenous people of Greenland. We sometimes group them all, calling them Eskimos. That's not really what they call themselves. I don't know if they're Inuit or not. But later on, they were translated into English. And an American poet, Edward Field, put them into those lines that I have just recited for you. So the drum among indigenous people everywhere, whether in Africa, whether in Greenland, whether in North America, whether in what we call South America, or Siberia, which is where the word shaman comes from the Tungus, indigenous people of Siberia. The drum is regarded as the shaman's spirit horse, because the shaman travels in a state of non-ordinary consciousness, using the rhythm of the drum to open up the space between worlds and return to that time, that original time, which that earlier poem that I recited refers to you. That was the time when the human mind had mysterious powers. If you wanted something to happen, all you had to do was say it. And isn't it so that most of our planning, our envisioning, although we do think and dream in pictures and in mathematics, but most of what we do requires language. We put words to an idea. Some of you have used words brilliantly already this morning in your presentations. Others will use language brilliantly later on in your presentations, and you make things happen. So there's the making aspect of it. Now that word shaman has come to be used universally over the last 50 years especially, to refer to members of their communities, members of their tribes, not simply restricted to traditional indigenous communities, and there are many that are still intact, despite the efforts of the modern world to snuff them out. The word has been used to indicate healers, artists, cultural historians, leaders of ceremonies, teachers. I think there are some teachers and healers here, am I correct? I'm quite sure there are. Let's try something. If you want to participate, I want you to locate within yourself, where is that place that your healing comes from, your teaching comes out of, that passionate place that connects you to this very conference, right? The reason you're here. Find that healing place within you. It may be in more than one place, but I'm asking you to look in the body. Don't let it just simply be an idea. It's certainly not a degree awarded to you at an institution of higher learning, although it may have motivated you to get a degree. That part of you that has the power that you share with your students or with your patients or with your clients, or in the social institutions where you carry on your profession. There's a reason you're there. Be with that inner healer right now. And if you're still with me and you want to keep going on this journey inside this magical egg, yes, we're in a magical egg. It's as if I never left. But I didn't play my drum when I was here. I'm going to change the drum beat momentarily to 180 beats per minute to induce what is called psychomotor entrainment, studied by anthropologists and especially by medical anthropologists, those interested in shamanism and alternative healing techniques, because it has a powerful effect on our imaginations. And when I change the beat, I want you to be in touch with that power within you that is the healer, the teacher, the passionate one. And then I'll tell you a little more. If this doesn't work for you, hey, it doesn't work for you. You can just lay back and just enjoy the show. But I want you to participate if you're into it. Here we go. Now, from that place within you, I want you to extend your wishes, let's put it that way, to someone or someplace you know that needs healing. Could be a loved one, could be someplace on planet Earth, a country, or a particular river that you care about that's not running so clean right now. It could be one of your patients, one of your students. And I want you to extend your wishes from this powerful place within you to that person, that place. Maybe it's an animal. Maybe it's an animal. And feel it. You're giving. I'm not asking you to accomplish any outcome in particular, though you might have a particular intention. Right away, you might have known. I want to send this healing medicine. That's what we call it. We do call it medicine. To that person, that place, perhaps that institution. And observe what happens when you have that openness. That's the intention that's most important. That you wish the best. If you want to call that love, yeah, I call it love. I don't mean something syrupy. I mean the energy that holds the whole shebang together. I mean the energy out of which it was created and with which it is sustained. You're a channel for that right now. Your intention is good. You don't want anything in return for it. You're giving. Let the medicine work, doctors. The sun was a mare, a palomino. Moon was my horse. I was afraid she hadn't been stabled. We were walking past the place where the old barn used to stand. It was there again. And I said I had to check to see if the horses were all right. This was at night. I looked for Moon. The sun was there. Heard her nicker. She cocked her hind foot and the steel shoe gleamed. But I looked for Moon. Her stall was pitched behind a black hay mound. And suddenly, she moved up close to me, seal brown, and out of the darkness, too. So that poem is right out of a dream that I had. And it's about my childhood and horses are a big part of my life, and I'll read you a little more about horses. But a dream takes us, doesn't it? And a dream is always in the present. How often when you recount a dream to somebody else, it was like I was this and that, and then suddenly you're talking in the present tense. Same thing happens, by the way, after a traumatic experience, when you want to recount a traumatic experience. Because our imaginations make it real in the present moment. Memory, interestingly, paradoxically, memory recalled is always happening in the present moment. And so we have a certain degree of power over memory, having to do with the narrative that we tell us and our capacity to engage with the narrative. We can reframe our memories. So we can reframe memories of traumatic experiences. That was one thing I tried to teach my students about narrative medicine. The meaning that you make of the experience is part of the healing. The healing means wholeness. I think you know that. Here's a poem from my most recent book. The book is World Headquarters. I have copies for sale. See me if you want to buy a copy. This came out just recently. My body, your body. Our bodies like matchsticks, our bodies like smoke, like wood dappled with flames. Our bodies like yellowing leaves, our bodies like broken glass. Our bodies like strings of rain, like flowers exploding with seeds, like torrents of rain. Our bodies, never the same after love. Our bodies, all the same, quite gone after death. Our bodies alive with hope, our bodies also of hate, our possessive bodies, our bodies afraid to grow old, our bodies like tumblers of brandy, our bodies like chalices of gold, our bodies like rainbows, our bodies of light made to shimmer, our bodies arrayed with stars, our bodies of galactic proportions, our bodies like baskets of blood, our bodies of loam, of mud, our bodies on loan from the sun, our bodies, our bodies. Where do we keep their true hearts? Is the soul to be found among nerves in the synapses, sparkling with joy, crackling with horror at the cruelties our bodies inflict on each other? Where are the mothers and fathers with kisses like bread for their children? Where, right now, is my own body, whose breath is this song, whose questions so vital? Why are we killed in the name of a god? Why are we traded for pieces of silver? Why do some bodies burn? Why are some bodies faceless? Why do the eyes of so many go blank, their voices gone numb, while their digits are twiddling keys? And outside their doors, the bodies of others lie dead. Somebody, answer me now. I require your answer in person. I insist that your body, human as mine, be humble as salt and bold as a diamond at dawn, gracious as corn, erotic as an orchid, and proud as a tower of wheat. Your body, my body, soft as the down of a gosling, fierce as a falcon falling from heaven, silent as water under the grass, smooth as the skin on warm milk, bright as the tongue of a cat, void of desire or craven or cold, brimming with passion, detached or self-sacrificing, ignorant, eloquent, jealous, divine. Our bodies, soon gone. Our bodies, the bodies we dance through. So a text keeps words in place. And that's why poets write down things. I guess there are some who still know how to memorize everything, and I have a few poems by heart. But writing a text enables you to dwell over the choice of language. That's really one of the big differences. And to maintain the choice of language, call it a vibration, right? It's all about sound and vibration. Call it a vibration. Think of it as a musical score. That's why music is written down. Here's a poem I wrote when I was living here in Qatar, when I rode a lot of wonderful horses. This is titled Hedja. It's an Arabic word. Old mare, mother, male, à la mer, at the sea, on the beach, dying. On the sand, a scarlet plume trailing from your vulva. Bleeding frankly, a doctor would say, while we watch, waiting for word to the vet on her mobile, waiting for consent for youth in Asia. We gather in the shadow of the van, being human with you, helping you in any way we can, toweling cool water over your neck and flanks, holding your head as you fail again to find your feet, old mother, flailing, your hooves on the packed sand, gasping to stand, your long horse face, grandmother, facing heaven, 28-year Arabian gray. How many foals did you drop on this land? Uterus now prolapsed, extruding, raw and red, as if itself to be born at last. And now your death arrives. Now the vet has heard, and she injects first a large milky dose to kill your pain, punching right into the jugular vein. And a moment later, through the same IV, shoots you full of death, delivers you peace. Hedja, whose name means gift. And we who will grieve you are grateful you lived. So you might have guessed that horses are very special to me. Shamans often have a tutelary deity or tutelary animal, a power animal or animal ally. Spirit horse in the drum. Still on the journey with me? Fly with me. Arabians. If a horse's shadow is big as the horse, but weighs as much as nothing, then what of the body made of light? A draft horse draws, a light horse drums. Gallop, to run. The horse with its feet hitting 3 beats flies with all 4 in the air. The effortless wind, the sun. Can you believe a man who puts his face into your hands isn't asking for sugar, but for love? Love is light, made of light. Love is a name for the light. We rolled in the hay, we prickled with pleasure. At dawn, strolled the beach where migrant flamingos were waiting. They used to wade in Lusal. I know it's all gone now. Still here in this poem. Near Zakrit, at a wadi, feral ostriches, 14 hands high, strutted and hissed. Ride at your own risk. My stallion, Salim, once a marathon racer, at Sheikh Faisal's club, was overlooked. Another stud, another gray, beautiful but ill-mannered, was bred instead to the blue ribbon mare. Al-Borak was given by Gabriel to Muhammad to fly in the night to Jerusalem. The lightning. I jumped into the sun, blinded, but my mount Kazmir was wise and leapt rightly. We wore thobes, gutras, akyabs, our horses in decorative blankets and braided rope bridles, acting for a film about war. We battled with swords, playing at war, making a movie that ended with love. That's a true story. That's, I have a chapter about making that movie in Desert Wind. So what I loved most when I was here was being in the desert and riding horses in the desert. Maybe some of you have ridden Arabians in the desert. As soon as they get out into the desert, they change, they come alive. That's what they were bred for. And I was in a movie for the Doha Cultural Film Festival. We did do all of that out at the dunes. It was shown during the festival, and I was unrecognizable, but I recognized my horse in the dust storm as we waved swords at each other. But it was about love, that movie. One day I said to my class, bad times are especially useful for self-reflection. Without indulging in misery, when you're sick or hurt, you have a chance to ask yourself, what is really important in my life? Some students stared at me as if I might reveal a great secret. Some bowed their heads, maybe in silent prayers that they would never fall ill, maybe having nothing to do with what I was saying and instead glancing at their chemistry notes. I continued. When smooth sailing resumes, there's a tendency to put the storms behind you. That's natural. But there can be some benefit in thinking about what you've been through. You could write in your journals about stuff like that, including how hard you have to work to get into med school. I smiled, but several pairs of woe-filled eyes met mine. I could see how worried they were about their upcoming chem exam. I couldn't take them as far with me as I might have wished, couldn't diffuse the unhealthy emphasis on grades that afflicted them, although I did sometimes remind them that the course was concerned with their personhood, as well as learning to write expository essays. We attempted much, and behind my efforts was more inspiration from Socrates, his famous prayer to Pan, the god of wild places. Grant to me that I be made beautiful in my soul within, and that all external possessions be in harmony with my inner man. Although not a physician, I think Socrates would have understood the primordial doctor and teacher, who often is also an artist, nowadays universally known as the shaman. Across indigenous cultures, shamans embody the archetype of wounded healer. And not only is the image valuable to doctors, but it can also be potent for anybody who reflects on the surprising gifts that illness and wounding can bring. whether physical, psychological, or spiritual. As I've said, my seminars introduce students to narrative medicine, techniques developed by both doctors and patients to use writing as a path to health. Personal narratives especially have the power to discover meaning in painful experiences. Writing about a trauma can change a person's attitude regarding why, and why me, and what might happen next. This brings psychological relief, and maybe scientific studies will show that such writing also empowers the immune system. It might come to be regarded as actually curative or as a type of preventative medicine. In any case, storytelling recovers pieces of ourselves that are hidden until we can give them shape. Stories can probe past traumas when we're ready to expose them to healing light. This sounds to me like a kind of shamanism. What are we doing for time? Human time is being recorded on that device, but we don't have to be limited by it, unless you have a constraint.
We can go to 140.
Yeah, so there's still a few minutes. So my father was a magician, literally. My father was a stage magician and a very powerful, charismatic person in my life. I saw him hypnotize my uncle and make his body go rigid and balance between two chairs. And I never forgot that. I may be imagining this, but I think he had me go and sit on my uncle while he was stretched between the two chairs. I know that I've seen other hypnotists do that. So that made a big impression on me, and that was certainly one reason why I just automatically assumed I could learn to be a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist, which is one of my professions. Here's a couple of pieces from a long poem, an elegy for my father. And it's called Every Wizard. 1. In the polar night, his silence holds the audience shivering and uncertain, inquisitive when he is gagged and trussed, secreted away. He has cast a glamour in this room, smudged fragrant smoke on furs heaped in a corner, up to antlers hung from the roof beams, into the lantern eyes of children. He owns crystals and words of power, works in darkness, works the tools of his fathers through trance and song, making medicine, patching up souls and sucking out pain. Now his allies come, rallying outside on wings of ice, pummeling doors and windows, sweeping into the house. Spirits come, clattering bones, baying like wolves, whistling like elk, while the Angakok escapes behind his skin of silence, leaves his body, and visits the dead ones. So Angakok is a word for shaman. And one of the missions of the shaman is to have interactions with spirits and ghosts. Shamans visit the dead ones. But most writers will tell you that's a lot of what being a writer is. You're constantly around ghosts, the ghosts of memories. You're constantly around spirits, the spirits of your characters. So the archetype carries over. And this poem, Every Wizard, is not only an elegy for my magician father, but it's about the archetype, every wizard, right? So wizard used to be a translation for shaman. Now they simply say shaman. Here's part 3 from that same poem. I saw him today, an oracle announced him. Spirit, he was expected. Once again, my father evades immigration officials, jumping ship, Italy behind him at the port of New York. He speaks 2 magic words of English, I'm Alfredo, and jimmies his way into Tafaro's proving he can balance a whole course of dishes on each steady palm. He pirouettes on the tightrope between kitchen and table. He serves film actors. Even performs sleight of hand for Tony Curtis, who will star as Houdini, offers him pointers. He trades his charms with bewitching women, collects tips and stuffs large bills away in a money belt, fleshing out his prospects enough at last to inveigle my mother, who must love him, as everyone does. This much I know, like legend, my father. And I'll read one more from this book. So, Mircea Eliade, who was a Romanian anthropologist, wrote a marvelous work. Some of the conclusions are outdated now, called Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy. It's still in print in English. He drew upon the studies of Knut Rasmussen, by the way, who talked to many shamans in the Arctic Circle. So besides visiting the dead ones and interacting with all kinds of spirits, spirits of humans, spirits of trees, spirits of rocks, spirits of animals, shamans also leave their bodies in ecstatic states. So they travel outside of time and space at will, sometimes using the drum, right? That's why I called it a spirit horse, because it carries you. Now we know there's science to indicate that the psychomotor entrainment, 180 beats per minute, actually does alter consciousness, creating trance. There are many kinds of trance, by the way. So the shaman has many, many techniques for entering into these ecstatic states. Here's a poem called This Golden Hour. Not that the laundering itself was any less than the opportunity to apply what I have learned. Not that I could simply think my way to purity, nor that the texture of cotton between my folding fingers was any less than a gift from the sun, like consciousness itself. But for this hour on high, I've turned my back completely on the other tasks awaiting me within, multiplying within, like so much marching music I won't attend. Now for the broad daylight I embrace. Up on the roof, resting on a lawn chair, inhaling the clean October air, a perfume green and golden. Not that I won't sometime turn to find the door, resume my chores. Not that I imagine any step that I might take as graceful if accomplished without presence. I'm not a person who would choose to sleepwalk to the moon. And I don't dream up below me in the sunshine, past the summertime, the grapevine's drapery, whose purple-blue fruit is bunched like offerings to the gods, or to the cedar waxwings, the woodpeckers who will come. Nor do I fabricate a distant, steady, gliding vulture circling above in the blue that is beyond the word for what is vaulted endlessly above. I just notice that height. That's all. That's enough. So how about if I stop there? What's it been like for you? Did you go on a journey? How are you feeling right now? Are you still in touch with that healing power within you, the reason you came here? Anybody want to share a little about that? I love your silence. It's fine with me. We actually do have a few minutes. If you don't say anything, I'll just keep on doing my thing here. But I would like to hear if you have anything to say. Maybe you're still processing. Okay, you can catch me later. Let's hear a little more here from Desert Wind. It means so much to me to be back here. As I said, I haven't been back here for a long time, although it's like I never left. But in writing the book, my God, it went through so many revisions. You know, it's like I was constantly back here in my imagination. I also was keeping up via the internet with all the changes in the city. It's remarkable. It came to me. It's like the difference between a 6-year-old child who then is given all the advantages and now is a 21-year-old child. That's how Doha strikes me, right? So it was a 6-year-old child when I was here, and now it's had all the advantages, and it's a 21-year-old child. I hope there's a lot of life inside of it. So one of the last chapters in Desert Wind was Weill Cornell graciously gave me an education leave to go to Malta to an international conference on creativity. And it also corresponded with Carnivale, Carnival. Malta is still a very Roman Catholic country, and Carnival is still very big there, as is Lent. And that was a reason I wanted to go. But also on Malta are found what appear to be, maybe not anymore, but appear to be the oldest freestanding monuments that are still intact, right? So we know that there are places like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey that are probably much, much older. But the monuments on Malta, which archaeologists and anthropologists think all belong to a prehistoric matrilineal culture. And we don't know much about them, but it is still absolutely amazing what they built. If you go there, I'm sure you'll go to some place called Gigantia, called that simply because the monuments are so big. If you go into Gigantia, it's like walking into a uterus. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's like you walk through the vulva into the chambers, and it's like being inside of a uterus. From what the archaeologists and experts of comparative religion all tell us, matrifocal religions tend to emphasize loving relationships, the fertility of the earth, and sensual pleasure. There doesn't appear to be much evidence of emphasis on an afterlife in early goddess-centered traditions. And here at Gigantia, it felt to me as though the connection between birth and death, and perhaps to rebirth, might have been accepted as one continuous round. Did they believe in spiritual transcendence of the earthly plane? Did they even have a need for that? What did their shamans see during their ecstatic flights to worlds besides this one? Who actually built these tremendous monuments, and for what purposes? The Great Mother, Gaia. Her places of worship aren't limited to huge stone sanctuaries like these on Malta, or the Egyptian Temple of Hathor, or the Temple of Isis. In Qatar's desert, her presence is more difficult to feel than on this fertile island, yet she's always near. She's the ground below my feet, even 20 stories down from my apartment, where I stand upright in Tadasana, the yogic mountain pose. She's in the tiny yellow flowers on the roadside sand that the tractors haven't yet crushed, and in a spray of bougainvillea, purple and pink, twining the wall of the Iranian embassy, hardly needing any water. I've seen her crossing the street in Al Dafna, her face veiled against wind that presses her niqab taut against her cheeks and nose, her eyes guarded by dark glasses, an ordinary woman who might well be the mother of 7. She's any woman whose presence stimulates me to ask, what if I were with her and she the mother of our children? When I think of myself gendered as a male, she is gendered as a female, and therefore my opposite in whom I am interested. This includes my own wife, of course, who never ceases to surprise with her differences from me, and whose creativity produces a wellspring of poetry and a garden of woodland herbs and flowers. The Great Mother, our earth, that is today so terribly wounded, whose ailing children weep for her. Gaia will survive us, but in harming her, we harm ourselves, maybe fatally. Isn't this just common sense? Interdependent co-origination is a basic Buddhist shorthand for how the universe mysteriously, magnificently comes into being out of itself. The quantum physicists are getting close to formulating something similar. Interdependence should be a truism taught in every science class, and more than that, a motto for everyone on Earth. Here's what I ought to have said at my panel session last Saturday. Doctors, please remember that health means wholeness, and if we don't secure the health of our planet, every living being is imperiled. Conversely, in healing ourselves, we help to heal the world. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope it was fun. Thank you.